Morning prayers tonight. Do you have your? We'll use this book here. Yep, that's it.
And just so I can make sure I'm doing this correctly, page 1 and then page
Two.
2 and then up to 4.
Up to page 6.
Oh, page 6. Okay.
Okay,
I'll get it. Yeah.
that's all right.
And I'm repeating these things 3 times as prescribed here.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay.
So everybody mute your microphone so we don't feed back on what Zara is going to be reciting.
Thank you. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, mind, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. We take refuge in the kind root lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghais. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghais. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent. I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions or comments about the opening prayers? Okay. So what we've been talking about, we've been following a book called The Jewel Ornament of Liberation. It was written about 1,000 years ago and has been translated in English for us by one of our great teachers, this book here. And this Jewel Ornament of Liberation is the manual as to how to attain enlightenment, how to attain Buddhahood. So the composer of this is Gampopa, and Gampopa, just one second. And Gampopa was requested to put this in writing because up until this time, most of all the teachings were done in an oral tradition. So there were many different teachers traveling all around different parts of Tibet. And so this book was meant to be able to bring all these different teachings together into one book that everybody could follow. So Michael, can you take a look and see if the speaker view is correct so that this is getting recorded properly? Okay, I don't know what that is.
Yes, you're pinned.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. So, so we had different traditions. There was called, one was called the Aspiration tradition. Another one was called the Action tradition. And the other was called a realization or a blessing tradition, or the lineages. These lineages were lineages of teachers who had disciples, and then those disciples became teachers, and then they had disciples, and so on like that. So this particular lineage is over 1,000 years old, of unbroken lineage with masters and teachers and disciples and so on. So the aspiration lineage is having the motivation to want to attain Buddhahood, to want to recognize that within ourselves we have this true nature that we call Buddha. So Buddha Shakyamuni, who is the historical Buddha, he recognized this and he began to teach the method that he used to attain enlightenment. And this teaching is called the Dharma. These are the Dharma teachings. And the Dharma is a pathway. So we first have this aspiration to want to be able to follow these footsteps and able to attain enlightenment, to be able to attain liberation from confusion, liberation from suffering, and so on, and to therefore have happiness. So Gampopa was this teacher in Tibet who put this book together. The other tradition or the other lineage was called the action lineage. And the action lineage was composed of those masters who now was taking that aspiration and actually putting it into forms that people could follow. Actual meditation practices, different kinds of what we call sadhana practices. And so being able to teach that by being on the path of liberation, by being on the path of enlightenment, one begins to accumulate the wisdom and the merit that comes along with practicing and becoming a Buddha ultimately. So first we become what is called a Bodhisattva. A Bodhisattva is a wholly enlightened being. Bodhi means enlightenment, and Sattva is a holy being. So a Bodhisattva is a wholly enlightened being. So as a human being, we need to be able to put ourselves on this path of aspiration where we have motivation, and then we then go into action where we begin to really develop a practice that our life becomes an active practice. And then we then become a bodhisattva at a certain point, a wholly enlightened being. All the Buddhas were all human beings at one time or another. And then through their becoming bodhisattva and their purification, they then became Buddhas. So the third lineage is called the blessing lineage, or the lineage of realization. And this lineage is where now we have the aspiration, we're taking the action. Now we have the involvement of a teacher, of a guru, one who is really helping us to be able to purify and to recognize this true nature that we all have within ourselves, this Buddha nature. So this blessing is the blessing of the master, the blessing of the guru. And through this, we have a realization, we have a glimpse of what this enlightenment is, a glimpse of what this liberation is. We have an understanding that what we are being liberated from is this suffering that we've all been going through by some degree or another. Our entire lives are not entirely suffering. We have many levels of happiness and we have levels of suffering and sorrow and confusion and so on. But the point is that we all have this suffering and that we all want to be happy. So the only way to be 100% happy all the time is to be able to overcome our suffering. And we do that by the cessation of suffering, by cutting it off. And for us to be able to do that, we need to be able to recognize what the causes of that suffering is. So as we go through our Buddhism 101, that's what we're learning, is these different aspects of what it is that's causing our suffering, what those sufferings are, what the results of that suffering is. And then we are all putting this all together. And then we finally realize that we take responsibility for our suffering. We take responsibility for our happiness. And if we are involved in things in our lives that are creating confusion for us, what we need to be able to do is to learn how to cut off the roots of what that confusion is. So these are all parts of the teaching of the Buddha, the teaching of Gampopa, and what the subject of this book is, the Jewel Ornamental of Liberation. So the realization comes in realizing our responsibility in all this, that we're not praying to some being that is outside of ourselves. We're not praying to other beings who are coming to us to show us the way or to lead us or to be able to hand us enlightenment. What we are practicing is to be able to recognize this within ourselves. This is all within ourselves. We're trying to recognize our own true nature is our Buddha nature. But we haven't been able to recognize it because it's all covered up by all these confusions that we have. So part of the Dharma is recognizing those confusions, the causes of confusions, and how we overcome them. So where we are, we're in the middle of the book right now. So I wanted to give a little bit of a context of where we are. So we're in the midst of what's called the method of how it is that we achieve Buddhahood, what it is for us to be able to achieve Buddhahood. And we're in what's now the training in the action bodhicitta, the action lineage. Bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word that means the wholly enlightened mind. Bodhi is a word in Sanskrit that means enlightenment, and chitta means the heart. And in the heart is the true mind. The heart center is the big mind. This is our little mind, and this is the big mind. This is the intellectual mind, and this is the spiritual mind. This is the mind of the Buddha. So Buddha is a name that we say is the awakened one. So we all have Buddha nature within ourselves, but it's been covered up by our confusions, our emotions, and so on. So our first job is to be able to recognize those blockages and be able to dispel those blockages, to be able to cut through them so that we become purified, and then we can recognize our true nature, this Buddha nature, and then we can continue our lives as a bodhisattva, as a holy enlightened being. So this training in action bodhicitta has several parts to it. So we call these parts the perfections, the 6 perfections. And in Sanskrit, it's called the Paramitas. So these 6 perfections are very simple. They're things that we are familiar with, ideas that we are familiar with, but now we're taking it to a much greater level of commitment to be able to recognize and to begin to practice, to bring into our lives so that we become a complete human being, not just a physical being, not just an intellectual being, but also a spiritual being. So these 6 perfections, these 6 paramitas, number 1 is generosity. So this generosity is being able to show consideration for others in terms of materialistic things, in terms of time, in terms of knowledge, whether it's in our family or it's strangers that we meet or friends that we have, or it's people that we don't know that live all around the world, and for animals and other beings that are all part of our nature, being in this nature and so on. So we have generosity for all these beings and things that we do for them. And so the second thing is moral ethics, that we have a sense, we develop our discipline, our moral ethics to be able to control our lives so that we're not going off and doing things that are unwholesome, non-virtuous, that are causing suffering to all beings. We want to be able to cause happiness for all beings, and through doing our work for other beings, it comes back to us by doing these good deeds. So this is how we accumulate wisdom and merit, by being able to do for others. And then as we do for others, that accumulates back to us in our wisdom and our merit. So we go into a fair amount of talk about this, understanding what all this means in the Buddhism 101. So the first thing is to be a virtuous person. So to be able to do this, so this discipline, this moral ethics. Then the next thing that we do is we develop patience, because we don't always have generosity. We don't always have discipline. And moreover, other beings don't always have generosity and don't always have discipline. And we have to have patience with ourselves, and we have to have patience with others. So we need to recognize when these things come up that are showing, anger, that are showing attachment, that are showing jealousy or pridefulness or greediness or something, that we have patience for ourselves, that, we really don't want to do these things, but we see that there's certain causes and we need to get to the causes. So we're working on that for ourselves. But when others are coming at us with these negativities, with these non-virtues, and that we have patience with them too, and that we're not meeting their anger, we're not meeting their jealousy, we're not meeting their aggression with an equal negativity. We are trying to neutralize that. So it requires a great deal of patience for us to be able to do that. So that's one of the perfections, is developing patience. Another of the 6 perfections is perseverance, that we continue moving in a forward direction, that we continue our work, that we're not allowing ourselves to fall backward or to get lazy and to forget what it is that we're doing. We always want to continue to move forward, and we have right effort to always be helping beings and to be always helping ourselves and so on like that, to be able to produce the results of the actions that we're looking for here on this path to be able to attain liberation. So we need perseverance, we need diligence. So we need to examine that and work on that. Then the next thing is meditative concentration, mindfulness. We need to be aware of what it is that we're doing, why it is that we're doing it, and what the results of what we are doing, how it lands on other people, how it lands on us, what is the result of that. So we need to be able to develop a system of where we can kind of withdraw from our everyday involvement of our physical body and our intellect, and be able to have a moment of circumspection. So meditation is the key to this, developing a contemplation, developing a system of teachings that we can bring in. Then we contemplate them. And then when we contemplate them, we rest those thoughts. And then the meditation comes quietly by itself. And then we have, these moments of glimpses, of understanding, the core meanings of this wisdom, this true nature that we have within ourselves. And so this mindfulness is key, that perfection is a key to being able to recognize these other things that are happening, that need to happen in our lives on the pathway to become a Buddha, to attain our true nature. So then the last of the 6 perfections is wisdom awareness. So this wisdom awareness is to recognize that there is this reality that we are part of. And this reality has several aspects to it that are very easily confused. And we need to be able to recognize what the different parts of that reality is. We talk about it as dualistic nature, that everything, that all this dualism, all this positive and negative is all part of what we experience. And we're the ones who determine whether it is positive or negative. It basically is all the same. It's all the same love. It's all the same wisdom that comes from this true nature that we have. And so we need to be able to recognize that. And as we do that, we then transcend that dualism, and we recognize that there is this absolute reality. There is this absolute truth that is beyond our conception as a human being. And so this sounds like a real conundrum. How do we know that it's there? How do we know that it's true? What does this mean? It's through the meditation. when we sit and we really have a transcendent experience and we're able to rest our physical body, rest our intellect, and be able to channel the energy that we would normally be using in those two bodies, the physical body and the intellectual body, that we are channeling all that energy into our spiritual body. And then we go through like a threshold. And that threshold is like the transcendental meditation. And we go through and we have these glimpses of this pure reality that we might call enlightenment, that we might call liberation. And we have glimpses of it and glimpses of it. And what we need to do is to be able to become stable in that. So for us to be able to be stable in that means that we have to practice it over and over and over again and recognize what it is that ends that glimpse, what it is that ends that vision, what it is that ends that meditation, what is it that's pulling us back into our ordinary consciousness. So this is all part of the process. This is all part of the system of learning how to attain transcendent awareness, wisdom awareness. So first we have to recognize that it's there, that it's possible, that others have done this, and these others are our teachers and are showing us the way. The Buddha Shakyamuni has done this and is showing us, and so we develop a perfection in being able to do that, a recognition of that, and then through our own experiment, through our own doing this, we begin to get clarity of how this is done and what this means and so on. So these are the 6 perfections. These are the 6 paramitas. And these are part of training in action bodhicitta, of the holy enlightened mind, how we develop this holy enlightened mind. So the past couple of weeks, we talked about the generosity and we talked about the discipline. So tonight we're beginning our talk with the patience. So again, I wanted to give this context so everybody understands where we are in this. Any questions or comments about anything I just talked about? Hope I didn't go too fast.
This is really helpful. I really appreciate the linear, just like the systematic description of all these components and how they all tie together. Like, I think this has probably been like a light bulb for me and hearing you discuss it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. So this pathway that we're on is a systematic, progressive pathway. So that if we get interrupted, or we get lost, or we get stuck, that there is a specific way to be able to approach this so that we can get back to where we need to be if we get lost or we get interrupted or something. So it's important to have this systematic plan. And that was one of the genius aspects of the Buddha Shakyamuni, who taught us this Dharma, taught us this pathway. So it's very well documented. There's many, many different books written about it. And as I said, this one here is the instruction manual to be able to follow this. So now we're talking about patience. So as I alluded to before, that we ourselves may be confused, we may be doing non-virtuous things, we may be causing suffering for ourselves, suffering for others, and we should recognize that. And when we recognize it, we should say to ourselves something like, oh, you know what? I really didn't want to do that. I didn't intend to do that, but because I was confused, because I was unaware, because I was ignorant, or because I was full of other emotions, I caused this confusion in my life. And I'm really not trying to do that. I'm really trying to be a pure person. I'm really trying to be a happy person and not cause this for myself. So I have patience with myself and say, okay, I can take a break. I can say, okay, let me get the book out. Let me call up my teacher. Let me sit and meditate. Let me think about this and have patience to kind of go through what maybe I forgot about or what I didn't practice enough, what I didn't learn about, and have patience to be able to restore, to repair what it is that I was trying to do. For ourselves, that's pretty easy to do. It's easy for us to say, oh, I really didn't mean that. I can fix that. Let me go ahead and do that. And it's fairly easy for us to do with our family members and for our friends because we like them and so on. So we'll have some forgiveness for our friends and for our family. But for someone who we really don't know, someone who is coming to us with some kind of hatred or some kind of misconception of what they think that we are trying to do and is foisting some kind of non-virtue on us in retribution for what they are misconstruing, it takes a great deal more patience for us to be able to recognize that and be able to have forgiveness for them. So that's what we need to do. We need to have patience for their ignorance. We need to have patience for their desires, their attachment, their lustfulness, their passion in trying to project what they think is true. And all we want to do is to be able to meet them halfway and be able to talk about things. But we have to have patience for their hatred, for their aggression when they really take up, anger at us or we see it with others and so on. We have to have patience for that. We have to have patience for their pridefulness or their greediness when they have acquired a great many things and so on, great power, and they are using that to manipulate ourselves or manipulate others. We have to have patience with them. And we have to have patience when there is envy, when there is jealousy that is at play. Envy and jealousy kind of play in the back of the mind. It's not as overt as maybe as hatred would be or as attachment would be, but it becomes a subtle motivation for people's confusion in the back of their mind. They don't feel adequate. They have a poor sense of well-being and they overcompensate through their jealousy to be able to dominate, to come and try and take control of things and push themselves into situations, into people's lives. We need to be able to recognize that as a person who is on the path to attain wisdom and understanding and skillful means. We need to be able to have patience for them. So this patience is described this way in chapter 14 here in the book. It's this one sentence. It says, a special method to counter and overcome the obstacles such as ignorance, aversion, anger, hatred, to peace and harmony in the relative and absolute states. So what this is saying very succinctly is what I just tried saying for the past couple of minutes by saying that we need to be able to recognize people's emotions and what the causes of those emotions are. So what we've been talking about in 101 is what those emotions are made up of and so on. So we've been examining that. Now we're in the midst of that. And so we need to be able to take what knowledge we have, what wisdom we've been building on, and to be able to apply it into action, to be able to use this patience with these beings and maybe be able to help them in some way, to be able to talk to them, to be able to demonstrate to them that we mean nothing more than peace for them. We mean happiness. We don't want to harm them in any way. They shouldn't feel threatened from us. And what we want to do is to engage in some kind of a dialogue, some kind of an exchange of understanding and so on. Try and get to know them and try and get them to know us. Try and get them to understand that we have this commonality between us because we're all human beings, we all experience the same causes and conditions. And that to be able to share that with beings, to be able to do all this requires patience, to be able to settle somebody down, to be able to settle ourselves down and be able to say, can we talk about this? And to find the language that will set that atmosphere that we can talk to somebody who's angry or somebody who is very lustful and trying to dominate our situation in some way or another, or maybe someone who is just plain ignorant and doesn't want to learn about the other side of things. There's always a different way of looking at something. So we have to develop patience to be able to understand how we can talk with people and so on. So through our teachings, through these books, through the masters coming and teaching with us, through the different Buddhas, the different enlightened ones who have already attained enlightenment, we learn these techniques. We learn how to do this. And as we become more proficient at this wisdom comes up. In transcendental meditation, what we are doing is we are calming our physical body, we're calming our intellectual mind, our brain. And then what happens is this wisdom comes up, this transcendental wisdom comes up that is naturally there. We're naturally already enlightened. And we have to be able to allow that to come up and recognize what that wisdom is, those teachings that we already have within ourselves, because we are part of that. It is part of us. It's not something that we have to build. What we're doing is we're removing the blockages to being able to recognize that. Our true nature is to be happy. Our true nature is to be loving. Our true nature is to be compassionate. Our true nature is to be joyful. Our true nature is to recognize equanimity, that we're all the same and not force differences between us. So patience is the perfection that we utilize to be able to help us to be able to allow all this to manifest and so on. So basically, what we're doing is we're enduring whatever this hatred is. We're enduring whatever this ignorance is. We're enduring whatever this passion is, this attachment. We're enduring whatever this jealousy is. And we're enduring whatever this prideful greediness is. We're enduring that through our patience. We're taking it in and we're able to kind of neutralize it so it doesn't cause anxiety within ourselves. Speaking for myself, I know there are things that, all of a sudden can kind of break my patience and I get anxious. My heart rate goes up. I can feel my blood pressure rising. I can feel my thoughts are turning to doing something nasty or having harmful thoughts, and I need to recognize that when that happens, and it's a work in progress, and we continue to do that. And so whenever we feel that anxiety, whenever we're feeling that aggression, that's a sign that we need to have patience for whatever is causing that within ourselves. So we may be projecting it that it's somebody that is coming to us with that anger. It's somebody coming to us with that ignorance or something, but it's my inability to be able to neutralize it that is the solution to the problem. I may not be able to fix them. I may not be able to educate them as much as I would like to. I may not be able to do something with their anger as much as I would like to, but I can control my anger. I can control my reaction to that. So it's my responsibility to develop that patience, to absorb that, and then to be able to neutralize it, and then use that and allow the wisdom to come up to help that being to be able to recognize what their problem is. Sometimes we don't have that degree of wisdom. Sometimes we don't have the expression for it. We're not developed enough as a one-on-one teacher to be able to say that, to know how to do that. Again, we need to have patience to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to send love to you. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do Om Mani Padme Hum. I'm going to use a mantra or something. You know, I don't even have to tell them about it. I can leave. I can say, you know what, I don't need to be in this situation right now. I can't help this person in this situation. I don't have the skillful means to be able to do it. So I need to leave the situation and gracefully find a way to get out of it, that you're not going to cause any harm to yourself or cause any harm to this being. So you have patience. You send them love. You send them understanding. You send them compassion from your heart to their heart. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. But this is what we do. There's a great power here. You know, it's not all just physical. It's not all intellectual. There's a spiritual power here that we're developing. So we're having patience to be able to understand. I may not have it now, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to contemplate this. I'm going to meditate on this, and maybe I can find the words for it. You know, sometimes you've been in a situation and you were just overwhelmed by the situation and you didn't say the things that you wanted to do. You didn't do the actions that you wanted to do, but then you go sit down for a few minutes and you kind of calm down, and then you think, oh, I wish I had said this. Oh, I wish I had done that. I could have helped by doing this or the other thing or something like that. So we take that in. We have patience for that, and we incorporate that into our lives so that the next opportunity we have in that situation, now we allow that to come up very naturally. We may not be able to do it with that particular person. That event may be over, but there's maybe another event that comes up with another person and so on, where now you can practice that wisdom that you now recognize and have developed a skillful means for and so on. So all this is, again, having patience to allow all this to happen. If now you have the ability to be able to have the conversation with that person that is coming to you, that you are able to say to them words of wisdom. And if they don't get it right away, then you have patience with them. And maybe you try a couple different ways to talk about it. You tell them about your personal experience, or you talk about a book or somebody else or something like that. But you maintain the patience with them. You don't lose patience. And you try and, you know, through your sincerity and through your love and through your compassion and through your joy and through that sense of sameness that you're trying to share with them, you let them know that I'm on your side. I really want to help you, you know, I want to help you overcome this. And if you want me to, I will do everything I can for you. You know, maybe it's introducing you to somebody else. Maybe it's recognizing, you know, I can't help you, but there might be somebody else that I can help. So it has many different aspects, many different myriad possibilities of the way that this can manifest and so on. And part of understanding this is the perfection of patience. So you can see that it's how important this is and not to be taken for granted. So we meditate on this, we contemplate this and so on. So this is just an introduction to that. Any comments or questions about that? Does that make sense?
Yes, this
Yes,
is
it
really
does.
helpful.
Just taking it all in.
Okay. And we know that in today's political climate, you know, it's very easy to lose patience. You know,
Lance,
so
you're so good at articulating all this. Like I'm like literally absorbing. It's like a mental health counseling session too. It's so you're so eloquent at describing it. It's so good to hear you speak right now. Thank you.
well, thank you very much. That's kind of you to say so. Okay. So then we'll move on to effort or to perseverance. That now we have to have this perseverance to keep on working on the path at developing our generosity, at developing our discipline, our moral ethics, at developing our patience. We have to have the right perseverance to keep moving in that forward direction. So it's very easy for us to get lazy, you know, to say, oh, you know, I got so many things going on and I don't have time for all of this. And maybe I'll get to it next week, and then next week becomes another week, and then that becomes next month, and then that becomes next year, and so on. So we have to make obtainable goals for ourselves. We have to set obtainable goals for ourselves and make them small goals. They don't have to be huge things, but just little things that I'm going to read this book. I'm going to memorize this prayer. I'm going to attend this class. I'm going to have a 15-minute meditation session with myself. You know, doing these short things becomes building blocks to larger things. If we're always trying to do the big things, you know, it's too much of you know, rolling the ball up the hill, so to speak. You know, we need to do these small things that we can obtain, and then we gain confidence and we continue on and on and on. And gradually we find ourselves being very stable on the path. One of the things that we need to develop in our perseverance is having trust in what it is that we're doing. Now, I know some of you have heard about this before, and there's many different ways to talk about it, but here is a very appropriate time to talk about it. That there's 3 trusts that we have. We have a trust in ourselves. We have a trust that there's something within ourselves, this yearning that we have within ourselves that that's motivating me to move in this direction. You know, so let's say it's this spiritual quest that we have. We want to understand what this spirituality is, that there's something within me that I've had for a very long time. I've not been able to articulate it very well, but I've tried different systems. You know, I've been to this church, I've been to this synagogue, I've been to this mosque, I've been to this temple, you know, I've read these books, I've talked to these people, I've gone to these meetings, I've done all these things, and it's not, you know, I haven't found what I'm looking for, but there's still this yearning that I'm looking for. So that's a good thing. We have to have a trust in that and say, okay, one day, you know, I'm going to hit on the right combination of things where that's all going to come together. But I have to keep the effort moving in a forward direction. So that's one trust, is called the yearning faith, or the yearning trust. The next one is, now we meet a teacher. Maybe we go to the church or the synagogue or whatever, and we go there and we meet a teacher. And the teacher is giving us instructions along with, you know, many other people, and the teacher is introducing us to these books and so on. And we have to say, you know, we have to recognize, say, well, yeah, this is interesting to me. You know, I don't know where this is going to go, but for this time and space, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to have trust in this teacher. I'm going to have trust in this system that is being presented to me. And I'm going to follow that for as much as I can get out of it. It may be the answer that I'm looking for. On the other hand, it may only take me so far, but it may take me to another place that then takes me to further to where I want to go, and so on. So we have to have trust in our teachers. We have to have trust in the systems. We have to have trust in the books, and so on. So this is the trusting in teachers, having that faith in our teachers and being able to do that and so on. And know that it doesn't have to be something that is permanent. And if we move away from it, that it is going to be a sin, or it's going to be catastrophic, or it's going to be hurtful. You know, if it's done with respect and it's done with love and compassion, and you could say to the teacher, you know, I've been with you for a year, but you know, I appreciate what you've done. It's helped me a lot. And now I recognize I can go, you know, there's something else that I'm looking for, because I still have this yearning. And what I'm seeing here is not helping me get to the essence of what I'm trying to get to. But I have trust in the faith. I have trust in the teacher, and there can be many, many teachers and so on. Then the third trust, or the third faith is a clear faith. And this clear faith is what happens when you really investigate what it is that system is being presented to you, what it is that teacher is teaching you, what it is that that book is revealing to you, what it is that that meditation practice that you're engaging in is bringing up. To have a clear faith that this is obtainable, that it gives you confidence. You say, oh yes, this really does work. You know, this is a path that really does lead to something for me. You may find that it is the path that you're ultimately looking for, and it takes you all the way. But it may be something that takes you part of the way, and you say, okay, I've gotten to this part, but now I need to get to the next part. I need to go to another teacher. I need to read another book or something like that. But you have an appreciation, you have a confidence that this worked this far. And that's great. And you can be joyous in that. You can be grateful for that. And you should express that to others and to yourself. But you have the clear faith now to move on. We have a saying that one man's floor, or one woman's floor, is another man's or another woman's ceiling. So what that means is that I may see this ceiling and I need to get to this ceiling. But as soon as I break through that ceiling, I realize that that's now my floor, and there's yet another ceiling above me. And it's kind of like that. You know, whatever systems we're following and so on, our path along the way is like that. We go through ceilings that blast through onto new floors that then take us to support us to go to new ceilings and so on and so on and so on. So these three trusts that we have, or these three faiths, the yearning faith, the trusting faith, and the clear faith that we can do this, the confidence that we develop. So all this is part of the perseverance, is recognizing this. If we engage in a system, if we engage in a teaching or with a teacher or something, and it's not going somewhere for us, and we know fairly quickly, you know, and we can say, okay, you know, let me back up. I had another choice. Maybe I should have gone that way over there. Let me go over that way. Or maybe I didn't know I had a choice, but I got to look further. I got to keep looking or something. But this yearning is, you know, guiding me along to say, I got to find something. So this is the perseverance, to keep on keeping on. So the way it's described here in this chapter, this is chapter 15 in this book. So there's a great deal more there. I'm giving an introduction to it, but this perfection of perseverance is described this way. It says it is a particular antidote to laziness. The 8 worldly concerns, like chasing rainbows, it is to enhance the good qualities of wisdom and compassion through consistent mindfulness, of purifying all the non-virtuous thoughts and actions. So that last statement is saying that what we're doing is we're applying a system to go through all our concepts and be able to say, okay, this concept isn't working. Let's throw it out. And then we go to the next concept, say, okay, this concept is working. Let's move on with that. But then we get to a point with that says, oh, this only takes me so far. Now I can move to a next concept or something. So we're going through an organized investigation of our of all these different mindfulness and purifications of ideas and so on. Some ideas are blatantly wrong. We know that it's wrong to have sexual misconduct. So that's very easy to recognize and to dispense with that. But then there might be something else that says, okay, I can do something where I'm helping people and I'm working to help other people, but how do I do that? Do I work in a soup kitchen? Or do I begin to be a teacher? Or do I start writing papers and I put them on the blog or something like that? What's the right method that I can use? And you might find something works for a while, but then after a while it stops working. So you dispense with it, you move on to the next thing and so on. So it's this, system that you're applying. It says here, the 8 worldly concerns. It says here, this laziness. So let me explain those a minute. In our society, as Western people, we make excuses for ourselves why we don't do new things because we're so busy. Oh, I'd like to have this relationship, but I'm so busy already. I got family, I've got other friends, I got my work and everything. And this person really seems like a nice person, but I just don't have time. Or maybe it's, somebody introduces me to a new book, or somebody introduces me to this class, and we've talked about, what the meaning of this book is or what the meaning of this class is. And yeah, I've expressed interest in it, but I just don't have time. I'm too busy. So this in the Western mind is a form of laziness, of saying, oh, it really is something that I want to do, but I'm making the excuse because I'm too lazy to be able to really investigate it. So I'm saying I'm too busy. The other side of this is in the Eastern people, Eastern cultures, they sit around and they drink tea all day and they gossip. This is what they tell me, and they say, this is our laziness. This is the way we express our laziness. Oh, I'm too busy because I got to go meet with my friends out in the park and we're going to sit and we're going to drink tea and we're talking about things and everything, but what they're talking about is just about each other, and those that aren't there, they're gossiping about other people and so on like that. And that's their laziness. Ours is this other, we don't have time, we're too busy. So perseverance is breaking through that, is recognizing that and saying, I've got to make time for this. This is an opportunity that I've been looking for. I've got to make some time for this. So this is perseverance. The 8 worldly concerns are very interesting. The 8 worldly concerns are these set of 4 opposites that we spend most of our time thinking about. How much time do you think about gain and loss? How much time do you think about, I've got this job and I'm making this money and I'm going to take this money and I'm going to put it in the bank, or I'm going to buy these things, or I'm going to, do whatever I do with it and so on. And I'm trying to gain all this money. Or maybe it's knowledge. I'm trying to gain this knowledge so I can go on and I can get a better job or something like that. I'm trying to get all this. But then directly associated with that, but in opposition to that, is the loss of this. Well, what if I lose this? Oh, I'm not going to put it in the 401k, because I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I'm going to stick it in a savings account, or I'm going to stick it under my mattress or something like that because I don't want to lose it. But now I'm always worried about, oh, I'm leaving the house. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to be away for a weekend. And I left all that money underneath my mattress. Am I going to lose it? So we're thinking about how we're going to gain things, and we're thinking about how we're going to lose things. To think about how much time we spend thinking about those things, worrying about those things. So those are 2 opposites of a worldly concern. Another one is praise and blame. Let's say I've got a really good job and I've done something really good in the company of people that I work with, and I brought in a new account, or I developed a new system or something, and something that everybody was really, really happy about, and it enabled the business to grow, and everybody was heaping praise on me and saying how wonderful this is, and I got awards for it and so on. And it's magnificent. And I feel so good. And during the time that I was doing this, my motivation was, oh, maybe they're going to give me the award. Oh, maybe I get my parking place out in the parking lot, or maybe I get my name on the door. I get that new office, or whatever it is, whatever comes along with that praise. You know, we really want that. We really look for that. And it becomes our motivation to do this. Now we get it. And now we got it, and now we're walking around the office, and we're looking real good, and everybody's coming to us and asking us our advice and all this. And how much time do we spend about thinking about that praise, who I am, and so on? But then something happens, and they find out that I did something in order to get that, or I did something earlier in my life, or I made a mistake and I didn't return a phone call, and now somebody is suing us or something like that. So now they're blaming me for now tearing down the company. Before they were praising me for building it up. Now they're blaming me just as quickly for tearing it down, letting something happen. So how much time do we think about this praise, and how much time do we think about blame, praise and blame? So if something happens like that, I know you lose sleep over it, and you're for days and days and days, and maybe it can become a depression that it really changes your whole psyche and so on. So here's another example of how blame can agitate your lifestyle, agitate your physical body and so on. So how much time do we wind up spending about something like that then? So it becomes catastrophic to our lives and takes a great deal of work to be able to overcome it. Maybe we got to leave that job and go to another job and start all over again. So praise and blame is another one of those worldly concerns. Another one is fame and disgrace. Now, think about some of your heroes. Think about maybe they're sports heroes, or maybe they're spiritual heroes, or maybe they're political heroes, maybe they're business heroes, maybe they're family heroes, people who have demonstrated, great courage and great wisdom and been able to do wonderful things and so on in their lives. And many, many people are thinking how terrific they are, and they have great fame. And whenever they come into the room, everybody wants to go meet them and talk to them. And if they go into a restaurant, they get the best table, and all kinds of things happen to them, and they get invited to go to parties and invited to go to seminars and talk at seminars and all these kinds of things. They're heroes. But then all of a sudden you find out that, earlier in their life, or maybe yesterday or something like that, they did something terrible. Maybe they stole some money. Maybe they were a sexual deviant of one type or another. Maybe they were, you find out that they were in prison for something that they did or something like that. And now that fame has now turned into disgrace. And how many people do you know like that? And maybe it's happened to you, and how much time has been spent, thinking about that fame, thinking about that disgrace, that fall, and so on, or how much time you invested in thinking about that person who your hero, and now how disappointed in them that you are now, and how your whole faith in in what they have demonstrated up to that point has now been destroyed. So how much time do we think about that? So that's the third of the dualities. And then the fourth one is pleasure and pain. How much time do we think about pleasure? Especially when we're young, especially when we're in a new romantic relationship. How much time are we thinking about the pleasures that we want to be with that person? And we're going to work, we're doing whatever, we're with that person, and we fall in love and all this wonderful stuff starts happening and everything, and you don't want to leave, and you're thinking about it when you go to work, you're thinking about it when you're driving, you're thinking about it if you have to go away, all this time that you're thinking about them and everything, all this pleasure that you have with this person and so on. And maybe it's a bodily thing, maybe it's an emotional thing, maybe just being with that person and just being in the same room with them, or maybe it's having an affair with them, whatever. You can understand this pleasure that you have when being in this situation and so on. But then you're out with this person, figuratively, and you see this person talking to somebody else across the room. And you see them having this very animated conversation and so on. And you begin to think to yourself, are they talking about me? Are they making some kinds of plans, to be able to go off with me? Is that person going to leave me for this other person? And finally, and then they come back and they say, oh, by the way, I was just talking with my old friend here, and I decided that I'm going to start going out with him. And now all that pleasure now turns into pain. Or maybe that you're with somebody, let's say for 20 years. And then all of a sudden something happens with that person that you've been with for 20 years, something happens with them that changes them. Maybe there's an accident. Maybe there's a health problem. Maybe there's something happens at work or something like that. They lose their job. And now all your invested time turns into pain. Oh, I should never have spent 20 years with this person. All that pleasure. Maybe it's that you're getting old together, and you're not the person that you were 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago. You don't look the same. I don't feel the same way about you anymore. And now I feel like I've got this, I'm with this person that I don't like anymore, that I don't love, I don't want to be with anymore. So all that pleasure now turns into pain. So how much time do we spend thinking about pleasure and pain like that? So these four opposites, these 8 worldly concerns, we think about over and over and over again. And you start thinking about all these different ways in which this manifests and so on. So what we try and do is persevere to be able to liberate from that, to be transcendent of that. All those things are building blocks of our emotions that are results of our emotions. And if we were non-emotional, if we were able to cut off our emotions, then all those things would begin to fall away as unimportant, as being marginal, as just being practical things that we have to deal with, but we would have a wisdom about those things that would enable us to be able to marginalize them and say, you know what, the most important thing is my spiritual nature. This is what I'm really trying to develop. And as I do that, I'm able to marginalize those things more and more. I'm able to compartmentalize them more and more and say, right now, that's not important. What's really important is my spirituality, that I'd be able to understand that, cultivate that, and be able to practice that and be able to become a spiritual being. So this is all goes to perseverance. If we don't have the effort to do that, it's not going to happen. We could have people reminding us, but it's still our effort, isn't it? They can't do it for us. We have the responsibility to do it ourselves. So we have the perfection of perseverance, the perfection of effort. We need to keep moving in that spiritual direction, in that enlightenment direction, being on the path and continuing along the path and so on. So this perseverance pertains to, it says here in the text, it says applies to the Supreme One. That we have this idea, this concept of something that is beyond ourselves, or that we are part of, but we're not totally aware of it. That we're not aware of our supreme nature, of our true nature. So our motivation is to manifest that, is to realize that, is to recognize that, is to discover that, and then to stabilize it, because first it comes to us in glimpses. We catch a piece of it here and there, and then we begin to string those glimpses together. It becomes our vision, and then it becomes our application. It becomes what we do all the time. We become that being. We become that supreme being. So that's perseverance, the perfection of perseverance. So any questions or comments about that? Would you like to take a short break? If you need to stand up, turn around a couple times or get a drink of water or something like that, now would be a good time to do that. If you have any questions in the meantime, I'll be glad to talk.
Lance, is it okay if I just go get a bottle of water and come back in about 2 minutes?
Of course.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep. It's always important to stay relaxed and be comfortable in our form of
Mine's crisp.
oh my. Sounds like a party going on. Is that a Halloween party?
It's on the table, baby.
It is. You got it, Lance. That's what I was going to say. I'm actually the kids in the neighborhood. They asked me to be the fire master, to do the fire for them.
Oh,
And I've just been listening to you and building the fire for the kids in the neighborhood.
oh, great. Are
But,
you outside or inside?
I'm outside. Let me show you the fire.
Oh, I see. Oh, so you got your earbuds in.
There
Oh, wow,
it is.
that's a nice fire. All
So what a great day. We
Yeah.
got some trees off the houses, and now we're doing Halloween fire.
right, good. Can you see the moon? Can you see the full moon tonight?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cloudy. I don't think we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a blue moon.
Yeah, it's clear. It's
I say it's a blue
really
moon.
nice.
You know, blue moon?
Dancing, you gonna be dancing around the fire or?
I can. You want me to?
No, I'm just the offer though.
Yeah.
Have marshmallows or something, or what do the kids roast these days?
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like.
We actually do.
Are they wearing masks?
They're wearing masks. So we have a
That's
wonderful
great. That's good.
we have a wonderful neighbor here that does this every year in the neighborhood. And she's actually like an art teacher and music teacher. And she's got like a whole setup here. You cannot see it because it's dark, but she puts like all sorts of things around the trees, and she has actors who wear masks and stuff, and they scare people that come over. So it's
Thank you.
Did they go out trick or treating, or
Yeah,
our neighborhood? No kids did that.
Yeah, they do actually, and then everybody kind of like comes back here.
All right, well, very good.
Yep.
Thank you, Adrian.
Oh, you're welcome.
A glimpse.
A glimpse of a glimpse. It's wonderful. Yeah, and I'll do a dance around the fire too. I think I did. Just get the fire going. Get the fire going.
We haven't seen anybody, so I got to work. We want to take them out.
But it's great. It's great to be back in the saddle with the practice.
Oh, good.
So Yeah.
Good.
Um,
Well, did
It
you get our
was-
message about last night's practice?
yes, and I'm planning to do that. The connection here has been really spotty, and like cables they've been ripped off. They're power people. They've been here working like around the clock for the last 2 days to restore power. But even like the Verizon service was very spotty. So it was really hard for the last 3 days. I've just been charging my phone in the car, just driving around.
Okay. All right, well, let's get
Did you guys
back.
have high winds? Like,
Beg pardon?
was it high winds that did all that damage?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Today we got a pine tree off the house and 2 cypress tree off the house. Actually, we got a tree off the pole from somebody.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize all this was going on in that area.
And then they ended up sitting down the
Mhm.
street like
Yeah.
2 hours before.
I'm surprised you don't have a contract to go out and start cutting trees for the county or something like that.
I don't think I won that. I think I had that for a while, and I was working for the parks here. I mean, it's good. I enjoyed it. Just helping the parks and stuff. But
Oh my God.
a lot of times they have, a lot of issues paying their contractors.
Ah,
So it's kind of like hard to do it with, your equipment, put your equipment in use, and So anyway.
okay. All right, very good. Well, I'm glad to hear. Is Kay still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, do you have any questions or anything about
No,
what we've
that's-
been talking about?
This has been wonderful. This has been
Okay.
absolutely wonderful. It's very nice.
Oh, well, good. Well, thank you. All right, well, then let's carry on. So the next perfection is the perfection of meditative concentration. So here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop a system, an organized system, a repeatable system that we can develop mindfulness, a mindfulness of the things that are all around us, a mindfulness of our emotions, how we react to all these things around us, and then a mindfulness in how it is that we are able to rest these things and to be able to cultivate our inner wisdom, our inner vision, our mindfulness of our meditation, our concentration. So we spend a fair amount of time on this. There's a whole book that we use as a guide called The Stages of Meditation. And it starts off by understanding what we call the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. So the Dharma is the teaching of the Buddha, the system that he utilized in order to attain enlightenment. So we go through the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. We analyze them, and then we begin to incorporate them into a daily practice. And then our daily practice consists of reciting these motivational prayers for ourselves, and doing a contemplation on, in this case, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And then at the end, we do a dedication at the end to be able to dedicate whatever merit, whatever wisdom that we have developed, cultivated, and so on that we've gained, that we're dedicating that to the enlightenment of other beings. Because fundamentally, one of the things that we're trying to do is to overcome our own attachment to ourselves, our ego. So those 4 thoughts, or rather those 8 worldly concerns, were our worldly concerns as an egotistic human being. And what we need to do is to be able to release them. So we need to understand, what our motivations are, what our causes are, and so on. So the 4 thoughts help us to organize that. And then we're dedicating the merit to other beings. Then the next thing that we develop is what love is. Very simple, just what love is. And we use, we have different objects that we use, and the greatest of those is our mother. So we look at all beings as we would look at our mother. We think, we talk about that we're likely to have had many lives. And who's to say that in prior lives that other beings weren't our mothers, or maybe we were their mothers and so on. But if we begin to look at other beings as our mothers, it begins a way of being able for us to be able to love each other as mothers. And therefore we're able to have the patience, we're able to have the discipline, we're able to have the generosity. All these different aspects begin to fall into place because we have a proper object in which to think about this, to develop an understanding of love, what love is. And then we contemplate compassion. Compassion is an act of love. Love is like wisdom, is understanding, why we are here, what the mother's role was in bringing us here. She bore our body. She made sacrifices for us. She taught us things and everything. So all this knowledge and so on, all this wisdom that came from our mother now is being activated, actualized by way of compassion. Do we have compassion for others? Everything that our mother did for us was taking her wisdom and compassionately applying it to her children. And if it wasn't your mother, maybe it was an auntie, or maybe it was a grandparent. It was somebody, in your life that had that kind of wisdom and had that kind of compassion, that kind of caring to be able to help you to become the person that you are now and so on. And maybe you can look at it in terms of how you are or how you've been in terms of your own children or other people that you work with and so on like that. So compassion is the actualization of wisdom, is being able to apply that wisdom. And sometimes it's just having an empathy for someone. Maybe it's being able to say a prayer for someone, or maybe it's being able to stop and being able to help somebody, instruct somebody, teach somebody through their difficulty and so on, to put them on the path of wisdom and happiness and like that. So we developed that. So there's chapters that are in this book that are devoted to each of these things, to love and to compassion. And then to bodhicitta. The next one would be bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the holy enlightened mind, identifying what the holy enlightened mind is. So this is very important. The holy enlightened mind are the qualities of what all the enlightened beings have, whether it's the Buddha, the historical Buddha, whether it's Jesus Christ, or whether it's Mohammed, or whether it's Krishna, or whether it's Gandhi, or the Pope, or whomever you might think, as a great leader, that as a great spiritual being, that they have these four these four immeasurable qualities that we say are the holy enlightened mind, bodhicitta. The first is loving kindness, this wisdom, this loving kindness for all beings, with no prejudice, no judgmental, no reservation that they only do it for this people and not for that people. Just unabiding, generous, loving kindness for all beings and all things. And then the second one is compassion, the actualization of that love, that forgiveness, of that love for all beings, even if they are suffering in whatever way, whatever confused way, whatever negativity they might be foisting on us or on other beings. We have compassion for them. And then the third is joy, empathetic joy. That we have, it's easy to have a joy for ourselves that we're on this path and we're doing good things and we're learning things and so on. But to be able to recognize that joy in others and be able to see that joy and be able to appreciate that joy and not to have any attachment or any jealousy with that joy. There might be beings that you have taught that you've helped in some way, your children or something that you helped, and you see them doing some good things and actualizing maybe some of the things that you taught them, but you don't have a pridefulness of yourself. Say, oh, I taught them that. You're happy that they're doing it and that they're practicing that. And that's this empathetic joy that they're doing that, you know? So that's an example of this unabiding this abiding joy, not unabiding, but this abiding joy that we have for all things that are happiness and so on, that are peaceful. And then equanimity. Equanimity is sameness, is a balance, and seeing that everything is the same. It's all made up of the same stuff. It's all composite stuff and so on. We talk a lot about this. So this balance, this sameness is a quality that the enlightened ones see in all things. They see loving kindness in all things. They see compassion in all things. They see joy in all things, and they see this balance, this equanimity in all things. And it never goes away, and it's not qualified in any way. So it's like we say it's like an indestructible diamond. Here's this diamond, and the diamond is made up, it is composite of this bodhicitta, these four qualities. And what prevents us from being able to recognize them is all our emotions, all this stuff that is covering it up. We don't recognize, we say our defilements, our confusions and so on. So what we're doing one by one is we're removing those defilements, and then the light of this diamond comes shooting through, and we have these glimpses of this holy enlightened mind that is within us. We've had it all our lives. We'll continue to have it all our lives. And when we die, when our physical body stops working, we eject that, and it goes into the great space, to the great nature, which we talk a lot about. So there's lots of different words to describe it, but ultimately it is indescribable in human terms. But we have glimpses of it through our meditation, through our practices, through transcendental meditation. That's what we are transcending, is our phenomenal everyday nature into our true nature that is non-conceptual. So all this is meditative concentration. All this is mindfulness. So in the stages of meditation, we're developing that. That's one of the parts of the development. Then the next part would be the what we call calm abiding meditation. Calm abiding meditation. In Sanskrit, it's called shamatha. And it's just being able to rest the mind. We rest the physical body, we rest the intellectual mind, and then our physical, and then our spirituality is just there like this radiating light, this luminous diamond. And we're just calm and peaceful in this shamatha state, in this calm, abiding, peaceful state, blissful state. And we rest in that. So one of the chapters of the book, Stages of Meditation, is dedicated to that. And then during the shamatha, wisdom comes up, thoughts come up. Some of those thoughts are emotional thoughts, but because of the emotional thoughts and because of our prior work in the stages, we're able to know how to deal with those, and we cut those off. We're able to put those aside. We're able to compartmentalize those and say, we're not going to worry about those things. I don't need to think about those right now. My goal now is to just have shamatha, calm abiding meditation. And we go back to our meditation. But then sometimes thoughts come up that we recognize as wisdom thoughts, that are true wisdom thoughts, that are true nature thoughts that are beyond our normal human awareness. And this is called vipassana meditation, insight meditation, how we develop, how our psyche is. We begin to see some inner inner reality, inner truth of things, and so on. So this is part of the mindfulness, is to recognize shamatha and then to develop a way in which to investigate, to allow that contemplation to unfold in our practice. So we develop that. And then we go through what's called the generation stage and the completion stage of attainment of enlightenment. The generation of the enlightened mind and the completion of the enlightened mind. And we have symbols, we have a system by way we do that. So this is part of what Tibetan Buddhism is all about. The transcendental meditation is involved with the first parts, is involved with all the loving kindness and the bodhicitta, and involved with the shamatha meditation, and maybe some of the vipassana teaching and so on. But then that stays as one section. But then the next part of it is this going into becoming the Buddha, to actually becoming a Buddha, to recognizing your true Buddha nature within yourself. So this is the generation stage of meditation and the completion stage of meditation. So as I said, this is what the Tibetan Buddhism is really focused upon. This is called the Vajrayana Buddhism. So all this is to develop this meditative concentration. It's a system. And if we get lost in the system for any number of reasons, we know how to get back on it because it's a repeatable system that has signposts and has a logical way of progressing along this path and so on. So that's very important. So the perfection of that is this section here. So here in the book, it's described this way: analytical and stabilizing meditations. Analytical and stabilizing meditations. Training the mind through investigation of the world and one's own life. Investigating the world and one's own life. That's all we got. You know, we've got our life. Everything happens within our life. That's our tool. That's what we have. That's our working basis and the world around us. So the investigation of that, to understand this temporary, momentary nature that we live in, this phenomenal nature, this temporary, phenomenal nature that we live in. It only lasts a moment like that in terms of how long this universe, such as we view it, has been billions and billions and billions of years. And the 60, 70, 80 years or so that we get to live is like that. So why do we spend so much time worrying about it? But this is what we got. So we got to use it, and we got to use it in a way that leads us to liberation from suffering, from confusion. So it says to understand temporary, momentary nature of phenomena, this phenomena nature, and stabilize in the 10 virtues and organize the mind according to the different levels of meditative states. So the systems that I was talking about, the stages of meditation, all takes that into account, and we develop our awareness of the 10 virtues and the 10 non-virtues. We've been going through life, and we've had some guidance, we've had moral teachings and so on, but if I said to you, name me the 10 virtues, the most important 10 virtues, maybe you can name 4 or 5 or 6, but I don't know that you can name all 10. And likewise, if I said, well, what are the 10 non-virtues? Maybe you get 2 or 3, but I don't know if you can get all 10. But it's important for us as practitioners to know what they are, to get to really know ourselves, to get to know ourselves in a very deep, profound way, and not take all this for granted, not to just take all this stuff that happens in our intellect for granted and so on. If I don't know what your different works are with your different jobs, but you probably have different, sets of rules and so on that you follow in your jobs. You know them, you memorize them, and you can list them. But what about to be a spiritual being? Can you list what that is? So it's our job to be able to recognize that, to be a complete human being. We have a physical body, we have an intellectual body, we have a spiritual body, and we need to be able to really identify that, come to understand that, understand its abilities and its limitations, and to be able to transcend both into our true nature that is beyond our physical body, that is beyond this temporary phenomenal nature, into that which is the transcendent, and so on. So meditative concentration, it brings the mind inside. So we have this mind, and mind, we differentiate. We say there's the little mind and there's the big mind. And you can say that the little mind is part of the big mind. This little mind is where all the emotions are, is where all the confusion is. And that's where all the defilements are. And that's what blocks up the big mind. The big mind is this holy enlightened mind, this diamond that is in our heart center. And we have to open it up. We have to clear away. We have to purify all those defilements to be able to bring the mind inside, to bring our awareness of the mind inside. That's what's being said, to bring the awareness into the big mind. And then when we do that, we more and more, we stabilize that. We gain the confidence that we talked about in the three faiths, the three trusting faiths, and we stabilize that. And then we find ourselves becoming a spiritual person, more and more, that is involved with everything that we do as a human being. We become a spiritual family member. We become a spiritual husband or wife. We become a spiritual mother or father. We become a spiritual friend. Whatever kind of work you do, you're a spiritual worker. Whatever studies you do, your spiritual studies, you become a spiritual human being. So it's developing this mind. When we do our prayers and we say Om Ah Hum, in the body, the speech, and the mind, the Sangha, the speech, and the mind, the Buddha. So what this means is that the Buddha, this Buddha awareness, this true mind that we have, there's the mind of the Buddha. There is the speech of the Buddha. The intellectualization of what is happening here is the speech of the Buddha. And he's purified it to the point of the Dharma teachings, which is pure and so on, what the reality of all this is, and not all the confusions of the 8 worldly concerns. Has been purified. So everything that's coming out is all purified. But sometimes we slip and just garbage comes out. We have to recognize that. But the speech of the Buddha is completely pure. And then the body of the Buddha is symbolized at the forehead, at the chakra at the forehead. The throat chakra is recognized as symbolized as the speech of the Buddha, and the heart chakra is recognized as the mind of the Buddha. So all this is all coming together, you see. We use all these kinds of objects, all these kinds of symbols to help us to develop this mindfulness, this awareness. Otherwise it's all these abstract ideas, but we need to be able to use these techniques, to create these characteristics and so on like that, so that we can contemplate these things only to eventually let them all go. We're developing these things as tools to help us. But at some point, we don't need them anymore. We leave them behind. Just like when we die, when we pass away, we leave our body behind. We leave all our emotions behind. We leave all our memories behind. We leave all our knowledge behind. Everything is left behind, except our heart, our love, that true nature. That is immortal. immortal, excuse me, immortal. And that is just part of the fabric of what we say is this perfect space or whatever. And we talk a lot about that. So I'm just using, you know, a word to be able to characterize something that has no word for it. So we talk a lot about it in other talks. So this is meditative concentration to perfect this. So remember, put this in context. We're talking about action bodhicitta, how to put this action now to become on the path of becoming a Buddha. And we need to we recognize we have this path, and we need to actualize our lives being on this path. We're traversing, we're walking along this path. So we need to identify all these parts of it. So I think for tonight, I'm going to leave it here. We can have a question and answer for a little bit if you like. The next one is the perfection of wisdom awareness. And I don't want to shortchange that. So we'll continue that next week. And because there's great importance with that.
Lance?
Yes, sir.
I was just going to say that this book that I got at the temple, Stages of Kempo's book, Stages of Meditation, this addresses some of the things that you've discussed tonight and might be a helpful primer for especially some of the newer people.
Well, that's exactly the book that we use. That's the book I was thinking of.
Okay. It's very good. And I read it and I reread it, and I realize that there are things that I've missed or things that I've forgotten. So
yes,
probably available on, I don't know if people can get to the temple now. I think that's where I got it, but it's probably available on Amazon. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. It's only available at the temples.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
There's a link to the Kindle version that's in the chat box.
And our Kempo, our main teacher, our resident teacher at the spiritual director of our center in Virginia, Fairfax, Virginia, he wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written about 7 or 8 different books. And learning Buddhism is really a simpler version of Joy, Ornament, Liberation. And Stages of Meditation is the workshop of that book. And he wrote both of those books, and he's written many other books and so on. So yes. So a few months ago, we spent a couple of months in Buddhism 101 going through chapter by chapter in that Stages of Meditation book, and we'll do it again, probably sometime next year. So Buddhism 101 is a rotating cyclic, series of teachings and so on that kind of build on each other, but they stay in the fundamentals. And then we have some aspects where it grows a little bit. So thank you for pointing that out. So I hope this is helpful. So this is mind training, what we call this, these paramitas, this action bodhicitta is training the mind. We've trained the mind to do many things, to occupational therapy, right? How to, take care of ourselves around our house, and how to maintain a job and to maintain relationships. We have all that kind of mind training that we've done. And what they say that, that takes 15% of the brain power. So now what we're opening up here is the 85% of the brain power through this process of spiritual mind training that we're doing, this opening up. So to be able to do that, we go through this repeatable system and able to do that. And then spontaneously what happens, all of a sudden everything just opens up and you say, oh, my goodness, it's been here the whole time. I just didn't recognize it. And you begin to see things in a totally different light, in a true light, the true nature of things. So, any other questions or comments?
I just want to say thank you so much for, allowing me to participate. This was very wonderful and just exactly what I needed to hear at this point of my journey. So thank you very much. I'm very
Well,
grateful.
you're very welcome. And if you'd like to join us, you're welcome anytime. Monday nights, we do the 101. And I rejoice that you're doing TM because I know how great that is and how important that was for myself. And I know so many other people.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes. How long have you been doing? About a year, you said?
December will be 1 year, and I've been very diligent in it. I think I maybe have missed 15 meditations in the whole year. So I've been trying to, be very, it's my priority. So
Is it done usually as a group in a center somewhere, or is it you're doing on Zoom now?
well, they are we used to have it in person together twice a week, but because of COVID, everything has switched over to Zoom. But I normally do it by myself, just because it's not always practical to be on Zoom with them for my scheduling. But I mainly do it by myself, but we were doing it twice a week in person at the center.
Do you have a guide? Are you using the book TM or another book or something?
I have a teacher. I have a teacher here nearby me that I was working with and I'm still in contact with.
Okay. Is it sponsored by a particular group, any kind, maybe a spiritual group of one type or another?
No, they're affiliate. It's not the David Lynch Foundation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. It's not them, but it's the TM, or it's Transcendental Meditation .org. So it's that group.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and
Thank you.
You were here. Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay.
Yes.
Adrian, did you have something?
No, I was going to say thank you very much. It was good to hear you tonight, Lance, and see everybody.
Okay.
So thank you for that. I was going to ask a little bit earlier, how did Kempo get to write his book, The Stages of Meditation? Was this kind of like came out of the necessity of, doing this kind of teachings and introducing, different people to the jewel ornament of liberation? Or I'm just curious about that. Do you know
Yes.
the backstory of that?
He came from India. I think it was maybe 2011. It wasn't a long time. Maybe it was a little bit earlier, maybe 2009. That part I don't remember exactly because we didn't meet him. I didn't meet him till 2014. But when he came, he grew up. He was selected as a child by Garchen Rinpoche. The only child, my understanding is the only child that Garchen Rinpoche ever kind of sponsored and brought into his monastery. And he was raised as a young boy, I think from age 8 or 9 years old, he was brought into the monastery and so on. And so Garchen Rinpoche oversaw his training over the many years and so on. He is only about 45 years old, something like that, Kempo Samdo. So Garchen has other associated lamas that have been with him for many, many years, but it's Kempo Samdup is the one, as a child. So when Kempo Samdup came to America in 2011, whatever, and he started, living with Garchen and started teaching at Garchen Institute. And then he started going to Gardroma Center in Ohio. And Garchen said, you need to write some books. You need to have something that you can guide your students with. And he requested him to write these books one at a time. So the first one was Learning Buddhism, which this book is like it's like a college text. It's very detailed. It can be very dry because of the way it's organized, like a college chemistry text or something like that, you know, going down and breaking down all characteristics and so on. But Kempo writes in a very conversational way. And actually what he did, he was giving teachings, they were transcribed into his book. And so it's about 16 or so chapters, and each one, you know, they're all based on the wisdom that is here, but he also incorporates some wisdom from some of his other teachers and so on. And then that grew into the stages of meditation, and then he's written several other books after that and so on. So it came at the request of Garchen Rinpoche to be able to give him and the other people of GBI, of the Garchen Buddhist Institute, textbooks that the lamas could use with their Western students to be able to follow in the teachings and so on. So that was the reason why the books were written. And he did a very good job. And did you have something to say?
No, that's amazing. I never knew the backstory of that, and that's, to me, it doesn't surprise me that Garchen Rinpoche
yeah. So you will hear Garchen many times. You know, when Garchen's giving teachings many times, he'll get into things that he'll say. You know, he says, "I'm just a yogi."
that
And if you got these technical questions, you got to ask the Kempos. You know, because they really go into the academics. So it's good to have the Kempos, but it's also good to have the yogis. You know, it's a two-prong, it's a two-way, not a two-way street, but it's a two-lane highway, you know, and they are happening concurrently. You know, you're learning the academics, but then you're learning the techniques of meditation at the same time. Okay.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you for explaining that.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so let's do our dedication prayers unless somebody has something else. So Zara, if you will lead us in the dedication prayers, we'll start on page 18 in our prayer book and go through to page 22, please. I'll turn my microphone on and just Zara's will be on.
Okay. Okay. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord, Gampopa, Phagmo, Drupa, and the Lord Trinkampa. Please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve the all-knowing state, and may all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of nature, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikangpa Ratnashra, who is Omniscient Lord of the Dharma, Master of Interdependence, continue and increase through sturdy practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara, nirvana, and the innate root of nature, virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of the vast root of the virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Ahom. Om. Ahom. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lance.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Okay.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you. You're all welcome. Hope
Have
to
a good
see you
night.
Monday, 101, if you can join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, all.